Good afternoon, students or viewers out there. Welcome back for the afternoon lesson. It's History, East Africa. We shall start from where we stopped the other time. I remember when we met last time, we looked at we were starting with the introduction of history, how history is important to the human aspect of life, how we should handle some other aspects concerning history. So before we go very far, I want to welcome you in this class. We are going to start by looking through what we covered in the last lesson. Remember, I introduced to you what history means. I told you history, how it is important to human life. I also encouraged you briefly on what history is and how history and the goodness of the history. Still, I don't want to forget the fact that you are my students and I have to guide you, I have to encourage you on as far as this class is concerned or history is concerned. I'm advising you as a student that you take this as a precaution for yourself very well. And that is the only way you will pass O-level very, very well. You don't have to fear all the subjects. The subjects I've counted are the simplest subject that we have in the Ugandan curriculum. However, let's go back to the real business. The other time we started with the introduction of history. And I remember I defined what history means in real life. I remember I told you history is from a Greek word which is called historia. Historia meaning the search for truth. We already discussed about that, and I remember I gave you the definition of history, which is the study of the past events correlating with the present situation to make the future. You use what past to compare with the situation you're facing currently, and then you see how you can make tomorrow be a better one. Not already mess like what happened in the past or what is happening now. So it's just a comparison between, amongst the situation, the past, present, and the future. So that's what I did talk about the other time. I gave you the importance, the reasons why we study history. And one of the reasons I gave you, which was the simplest, is to pass exams. You shouldn't forget about that. To pass exams, I remember I told you, it gives us the knowledge of comparing the past to the current situation in order to determine the future. Just like the introduction, the definition says. Also, it is a great source of employment opportunity in real life. I'm a teacher, I'm teaching history, it has employed me in this sector. Lawyers are there competing, debating each and every day because they have historical knowledge. You must be having historical knowledge in your brain so that by the time you cross A level, you have the brain which is focused. Let me tell you the truth. In A level, history can open up your mind because you are given a clear opportunity to debate, to argue. If I ask you to describe something, if I ask you to explain the situation, if I ask you to give for me some procedures of which some things are handled historically, you are able to go about that. And in the process of you describing to me how the things came, if I ask you describe the situation that befell in the French Revolution, you will have to tell me everything. You get that? So in that process of giving your argument, you are developing intellectually for you to have a better time of debating and arguing. So it gives us a better opportunity to have the members in the parliament. So we have good debaters, we have lawyers because they pass through history and other subjects. So you shouldn't ignore the fact that history is very important in real sense. Are we together? Also, history helps us in knowing the origins of the societies and our communities. My example was based on the migrations into East Africa. And those migrations, those people who migrated to East Africa, they had a permanent settlement. For example, the Bantu came to East Africa and had a permanent settlement around the water bodies, like Victoria. And then the Luo also had a permanent settlement in other parts, and currently the Shupa in the northern and the northeastern, the northern and western part of the country. So it gives us opportunity to really understand and trace the origin of these people, where they came from, and also why did they come from there. What challenges did they face when they're traveling, when they're moving, and finally, now that they settle, what impact are they creating there? Okay? And we shall look at those things when we reach the migration and movement in East Africa, the settlement and the rest. We shall look at them very well. It also helps us to avoid the mistakes of the past. I told you, whatever happened in the past shouldn't be repeated. Because assuming it was a mess, we shouldn't repeat the same issues. If the government used to be taken through force, we shouldn't again take it through force, because the forceful taking of the government is dangerous from a human aspect. One, people are going to lose their lives. People are going to, the properties are going to be destroyed in the aspect that even agriculture will not be carried out. Hunger is going to attack people. People are going to complete suffering. For example, I want to give you the truth. We had the insurgents in the north, the Konyi issues in the north. If you would reach the camps, the government camps which are there, you would shed tears, you would cry. Very many things. People are packed in one place. Over 1,000 people running to different places. People who are positive, people who are sick, and now you understand the fact that people are staying together. You find a very old man of over 40 years is having an affair with a child of less than 10 years, of 15 years. And those are issues which are very common in where you find the hygiene is very, very poor. People are just posting their things anyhow. And there are very many things coming as a result of that strategy. Strategy is like the one. So we shouldn't really repeat the same mistake of the past. Okay? We shouldn't repeat. And I pray to God that the issue that happened, like the Konyi war in Northern Uganda, shouldn't come back again in life, because people lost their lives. And to tell the truth, people are suffering. I went to some part of Lira. I met the majority of people, the youth of around 28 to 40. People are, others have run mad. People are crippled because of the effects of the bomb, the effects of the stress, and very many others. So I pray I don't think shouldn't come back, because when they come, they're devastating and it's bad. So history helps us so much in correcting the mistake of the past. Now, plus some other importance that you may have on that matter. I want to just touch them briefly because it's what we covered last time, and we have some things to cover again this time around. I gave you the sources of history, which is the oral tradition, which in other words means the word of the mouth. The history that is passed through storytelling, through poems, through poetry, and the rest. And I gave you the examples, the importance there. And also we have another source of history, which is written records. The documents which are written down clearly in the paper, in form of a newspaper, in form of a magazine, in form of a textbook and the rest. Those are sources of history where we can get the historical events and the historical facts. The importance and the disadvantages I gave you there. We have linguistics, use of different languages in explaining, in expressing, in identifying the historical part, the historical history of the past, and very many others I gave you. The advantages and the disadvantages of all of them. I expect where you're going understanding to get in contact with us, and then we'll really explain and you get to know about this, because it's important that you get to know the introduction of history. Plus many other sources of history like anthropology, which deals with the custom and culture, and also archaeology, which deals with the remains of the past events that helps us identify the history, that helps us identify what happened in the particular place. Are we together? Today, we are going to look at a different thing, but still, they're all making part of the history. Before we go to other areas, I will tell you the branches of history, what emanates, what came from history. Okay? We're going to look at the branches of history. Now, we have several branches of history. We have several things that tells us the history. We have several things that are coming out of the history. Now, the first branch of history that we have to know is that it's called political history. Now, with the political history, this one focused mainly on the form of governance, form of ruling system of the country. Is the ruling system of the country centralized or decentralized? Now, when we talk about centralization, we mean one person being responsible over everything. For example, a society or a community having the head, and everybody is responsible to the head. Okay? Like for example, in Uganda we have the Kingdom of Uganda, which is headed by Kabaka. Now Kabaka becomes a leader, a king of the kingdom, and everybody, all the other sectors are answerable to the king. That is where we call the centralized system of administration. So that one describes to us the political history of the states. Are we together? Just like I told you in Uganda, it was centralized in the sense that the king had the power of everything. Everybody was responsible, was answerable to the king. So kings become the power. But in a situation where we have a decentralized states or a decentralized system of administration, a decentralized states come in the aspect that we have very many leaders, we have very many heads, we have very many groups of people and having their own heads. I want to give you in the class, you have senior 1, they have the head boy. Senior 2, we have the head boy. Senior 3, we have just like that, senior 6. But all of them are answerable to the head prefects of the general school. So that is the decentralized system where, this is the decentralized system and the system where the leadership is given to a section of people and they are having people who are following them. So that's the difference between the decentralization and centralization. So that one describes to us the political history of a specific place, the political history of the country. For example, again, we have in Uganda, now we have the president is there, His Excellency Yoweri Museveni. And then we have our MPs, and those MPs, we are questioning them, but they're supposed to answer in the parliament of Uganda. So the political history tells us the governance, the form of ruling, the ruling structure. Are we together? Now, the second branch of history we have is what we call economic history. In economic history, this one focuses so much on how the government survives. Okay? It's concerned with how society earns a living, how a community, a society, a country looks for money. Economics is concerned with money. Everything that we do to boost economic growth, it can go through money. Okay? For example, does the country survive through fishing, agriculture, or another source, or trade, or tourism and the rest? For example, in Uganda, we majorly say agriculture is the backbone of the economy, which is true, because for many years, Uganda has survived on agriculture, on agricultural outputs, where we had what we call the cash crops. That is coffee, cotton, simsim, and very many others like tea. Those were mainly produced for money to support the economic sector and other sector. And we also had what we call cash crops. We had there's cash crop and food crops. Those ones which were cultivated for consumption, like beans, maize, and the rest. But then, currently, almost everything is becoming cash crop because people can produce maize in a large quantity and they sell. People can produce simsim and rice and everything in large quantity and they sell. So it contradicts between cash crop and food crop disease. But all this, I explained to us the economic growth of the country. Okay? Right now, Uganda, there's what they call diversification of economy. It means using another alternative to support the growth of economy, other than relying on one sector. If Uganda used to rely on agriculture, I want to give you an example in that. If Uganda used to rely on agriculture, right now they're investing in tourism, they're investing in fishing, they're investing in mining, and all that. The resources, the money which are going to be obtained from that is going to help in supporting the other social services like schools, like road construction, like hospital development and the rest. And all that is what we're calling diversification of the economy. And all that are also telling us the history, the economic history of the country, how Uganda is able to survive. Are we together? The third one, which is the side branch of history, is what we call the social history. Social history, this is concerned with the history of behavior in society. This issue is concerned with the behavior of a society, including cultural norms, cultural values. We have including marriage system, the dressing system, and so when I talk about the cultural norms, we have different tribes in Uganda. I want to give specifically Uganda, but we are looking at East of East Africa. Of course, Uganda is East Africa. That's why I'm basing on it. Now, in Uganda, we have very many tribes, and all these tribes have their different traditions and customs. For example, people used to say, okay, it's not that they used to say, but bishops, they are known for circumcision of the men. And that is their tradition. And people respect that. And when you go there, you must respect them according to their tradition. And all the other tribes in Uganda, they have the way they do their things, like tradition, like the way they behave, like during marriage ceremonies, during introduction and worships and the rest. And all these are talking about the social history of the situation. For example, I want to give you also, we have the Langi people. They were known for the dancing. You produce twins, people love to dance overnight. You produce to celebrate the fact that you've given birth to twins, because it's not easy. It's a blessing to have the twins. That's how they would believe. So we have to respect each and every tradition of a specific tribe. So that is what we're talking about as social history. It deals with the tradition of a specific country. Another branch of issue that we have is what we're calling religious history. With the religious history here, it is focused so much on the beliefs of different societies. It focuses so much on the belief of different societies. For example, I want to give you, we have the Christians. In Uganda, we have Christians. We have Muslims. We have pagans, and very many others. We even have idols, those who don't know where they belong, or whether they belong to Christians, or what they have, or what people pray, they don't even know. So that is what we have in Uganda. But we have to respect them in their different aspects. Now, we're looking at the religious history that deals with the religious issue. For example, the Christians believe in God, and Muslims believe in Allah as the supreme creator of heaven and earth. And we have to treat them according to what they believe in. Okay? So long as there's freedom of association, freedom of worship, freedom of everything in the country, there we have to give them a chance to exhibit, to portray, and to show their religious issues. As far as that is religious history. Another one we have is what we're calling diplomatic history. Now, in diplomatic history, this deals with the relationship among states. Relationship among different states. When I talk about among different states, it means more than 3 states, but if it is in 2 states that we are talking about, we shall talk about between 2 states. But now it deals with different states. I want to give you an example. Here, the example is that what the diplomatic history is telling us is that it deals with the relationship among states. We have different people representing the government of Uganda in other countries, and that is what we call ambassadors, a representative of a country in different states. Just like also in Uganda, we have diplomats. We have people from different countries representing their country in Uganda, and we call them ambassadors. So, diplomatic history deals with the relationship among these two states. Now, this is why Uganda is having an alliance with very many countries. For example, China. Uganda is relying on China to borrow loans, to have other things. It's because of the diplomatic freedom, the diplomacy between the 2 states. That's why we then are able to transact this, we are able to get a loan from them, then we shall pay, then we see what next. That's why we're able to have them in Uganda. We also go there and have our businesses and the rest in their country. So it's because of diplomatic history, because of the freedom that we have and the good understanding between these 2 states. So here we're talking, it deals with the relationship among states. For example, by having a representative or ambassador in a specific country representing another. Okay? Another history that we have is what we are calling contemporary history. It means the current history. What is happening of recent? What is happening right now in class? I am teaching you with the history, and that is part of contemporary history. Are we together? What is happening in the daily life of the country is what we're calling contemporary history. Also, it deals with the current affairs in the society. For example, the situation which is before in Congo, that is the Congo War, between the rebels and the ruling government of Congo. Those are part of the history. Those are things that will be studied tomorrow. Okay? Those are things that will be studied tomorrow, but we are facing it right now. For example, the Iraq-American War, which has persisted for a long time, the grudges that has persisted between them for a very, very long period of time. We have the Somalia War, which is happening, and very many others which is currently falling. And those are what we call the contemporary history. We shall look at the last one, which is constitutional history. With the constitutional history, this deals with the rules and regulations of a given country. How a given country is able to pass the law that should be abided by by the citizens or by the subjects. In history, we call the leaders the superior, and then we call the others inferiors or the subjects. So how those ones who are head, how the MPs, how the legislators, we have the MPs, we call them legislators, how they are able to put things into law, and then it's implemented down and we follow. For example, in Uganda we have the law says alcohol is not supposed to be sold to persons under the age of 18. Okay, so those are part of the constitutional history, things which are found. Like that one you can find in the, we are looking at the sources of history where we have literature. So those are things you can find in the written view on the constitution that will tell you how the government intends to maintain all this into order. So constitutional history is part of the branches of history that we have in the country. It shouldn't be ignored. Those are the specific branches of history that we have. Very many things tell us what history means outside, or there are very many sources that we can use outside there to get history, and this one being part of them. Are we together? So we are going to the next one, and here we're going to look at how different people were able to develop some belief about how history came into existence, how man came into existence. In fact, in our next session, we shall look at how people, very many different people who came and settled into East Africa. Of course, we are getting with the issue of East Africa. We shall look at different people who came, different groups of people who came into East Africa. That's why we shall look at Harrods, Bantu, the Kusaites, and the rest coming into this. But right now, we are trying to understand how other people gave their suggestion about how other things came into existence. We are going to look at what we call theories of origins of man. Theories, these are terms expressing or explaining the meaning of the related issue or subject. Here we're looking at history. Now, we have the first source, which is calling the religious theory. Religious theory will tell us how man came into existence. Okay? Now, as per your class, that is senior 1 and 11, I want you to understand this, that in religious history, both Christians and Muslims, they all believe that it's God who created the earth and heaven. I also try to understand that you do believe in that. That it's God who created the earth, or Allah created the earth or heaven. That's for Muslims. And that one is a fact theory that they understand. Okay? It is a theory that they know. Even you know. So you're also a theorist if you're able to know that it's God or Allah who created the earth and heaven and everything that exists. You are a theorist. Are we together? So don't ignore yourself. You also have some knowledge about that. But these people are telling us that this theory explains how man came into existence. That is religious theory. Okay? And in the Bible, when we try to read in the Genesis, that is the first book in the Bible. Everybody knows about Genesis in the first book of the Bible. If you don't know anything about Genesis, go get the New Testament I mean the Old Testament version. Look at the first book in the Old Testament. You find what we call in Genesis. And Genesis explains to us everything about the human, the creature of man. How man came into earth and all the things. So if you've never read the Bible, go and read for history's sake. To study history, go and read the Bible. Because of reading history. That is how history is important. I was telling you, everything is just unique about history. We just enjoy. Anything is just directive on history. So go and read about that. You will understand more about the creation and the religious history, how God created the earth and heaven and everything. So, just like I was telling you, both Christians and Muslims all believes in God, or Allah, that is the creator of heaven and earth. Are we together? Bible tells us, if we read there, you will find that man was given in charge of a hammer of a good garden created by God, and that is why we call Eden. But because of the stubbornness of the Satan or the devil, through the woman, man had to fall into the trap of a Satan and betrayed and went against the commands of the owner of the garden. Okay? It tells us that the Bible says God instructed the man, that is Adam, not to eat the middle fruit, but to eat everything which was there, apart from the middle tree. But of course, you know, through the woman, when the man was asleep, the devil came in form of a snake, got the woman there, and told her and asked the woman, which tree did God tell you not to eat? They were like, he told us not to eat the other one in the middle of the garden. The devil was, that is a lie. This is a real lie. The issue is, God does not want you to be as wise as he is. Doesn't want you to be very clever like him. Doesn't want you to have good sense like him. That's why he's telling you, don't eat that. You see how you're lying yourself? That is how the devil had to deceive the lady. Of course, you know the problem with ladies, they're excited over everything. You tell the lady right now that I'm going to take you out, he's going to shout, he's going to, and you'll find that he's very excited about all this. You tell the lady I'm going to buy for you a car, even when you don't have, even when you sleep down, you don't have a mattress. He's going to be very excited. So, they're always very excited first, before men. That's why, if you go to the churches, these new churches which are opening, you'll find that 90% of the people in the church are women. And if you watch carefully, those ones who are easily possessed are women. They are the ones who fall down very fast and easily. So, they have to be deceived in that way. But this is history. I don't want to take it so personal. We're just trying to bring in history and you get it. Okay, so that is how the Bible tells us. The devil used the woman. The woman went, got the man when he's resting, then told the man that, in fact, the devil gave her the fruit. She went with it to Adam. The woman was called Eve, we know. Took it to Adam and told Adam, eat this fruit. Adam picked the fruit, asked the woman, but God told us not to eat. The woman was like, no, you eat. She had already been convinced, so she's also trying to convince the woman. Of course, you know it's what we call strength of the woman. Women has different ways of winning men. That one is just that. But then, when she went with the fruit to the husband, which is Adam, Adam bought the fruit, the fruit after eating. The Bible says their eyes got open, they looked at themselves and realized they're naked. Now when God came, called Adam, Adam, where are you? Adam had to say, we are here, we are hiding. Why are you hiding? That is good. Because we are naked. Who told you you are naked? You see? So that is part of RRE again, religious studies. But I'm trying to bring this as part of the history class, and you understand how man came into existence. The Bible still goes ahead and tells us that the man was given, of course, was given punishment. The woman was also given punishment. Even the devil was given punishment. But because the devil had his own intention, he never cared. That's why you see the snake crawling with the baby and the rest, and the man hustling, trying very hard, sweating to get what to eat, and the woman giving birth with a lot of pain. surprising almost when the mouth want to open and to burst and the rest, but those were just punishment given by God. So that theory is trying to talk to us about all that. The second theory that is trying to tell us about how man came into existence is what we're calling scientific theory. Okay? It's what we're calling scientific theory. Now, with the scientific theory, it is very simple. We all believe, scientists do believe very well that human being comes from the emanation or the mixture of cells. That's how science tells us that when a woman meets a man, of course the sperm cells goes and meet each other, meets the egg of the woman, and then it fertilizes, and that's how human beings are formed. That is also how scientific theory is telling us. But also there were a group of people who had their own beliefs. That's what I'm telling you. If you're a Christian, if you're a Muslim, you can be able to believe that it's God or Allah who created the earth and everything. But science takes a lot of time for them to understand how they think. And sometimes you give them time to explain, they will talk, and then you feel like they're disapproving you, like they don't know what they're talking about. But for them, they believe in science. So for them, they were like the earth was just round in shape. The shape was round and had a lot of gases mixture there, had a lot of dust particles and the rest there, and it had persistent pressure, persistent heat, which was compressing that circular thing. Now, when the pressure became too much and the heat became too much, it bursted, making the sound of a Big Bang. That's what we call, and they ended up coming as Big Bang theory. Okay, that it just bursted, making a Big Bang sound. And now when it busted, that's how they believe that when it got busted. I know they are a Christian, I'm not a Muslim, I'm not a scientist, but this is how they believe that the round thing splitted with its own particles, and those particles contain humans already inside there, contains animals, contain forests and everything, and that is how men came into existence after that thing bursting. You get that? So that is scientific theory, how they try to believe in this. Now, in geography, there's what we call the origin of the earth in geography, and how continent came into existence. When you try to look into it carefully, it tells us that the world, the universe, was a one large mass. But due to persistent pressure, both compressional forces and tensional forces acting on that one large big mass, it had to break into different. Of course, tensional force pulls them. It pulled all these large masses apart, and then other parts remain. That's why you see that's where you see Africa as a continent. You see the southern part of America, the northern part of America. You have Europe and Asia. All of them were one large mass. And sometimes they try even to prove us right, or to give us a clear example by telling us that if you see how South America is formed, how it is carved, you will realize that if you push it closer, it's going to just pack with Africa. just going to spark with Africa. The other side, which is curving, is going to meet with this side of Africa, which is curving. So that is how geography tells us. But we're not in geography class, remember, we're in history class. When it comes to geography, we shall look at that one in details and you see how they will get closer to each other and what happens. Because you will even realize that the forest we have in here, that's in Brazil, corresponds with the forest we have in DR Congo, which is there, when they are brought together. So it means they are one large mass, but just split with all its particles together. So those were two basically theories. Theories that is talking about the existence of man. Those are two theories. But however, after the existence of man, as this theory tells us, man started developing into different stages. Different stages. Okay? Started developing different, we call it civilization. Man started developing into different stages. And basically we have 4 stages. We have the first stage, which is called the Halestone age. Then we have the third stage is called the Iron Stone age. Then we have the fourth, the last one, which is scientific age. We call them stages of civilization. How man started transforming. You will realize that in the first stage, okay, when we're talking about civilization, we're talking about the process how man became civilized, how man became to know how other things exist, and how man started progressing from one step to another. Okay? Now, this means the modern way of living of a man, that is civilization. The modern way of life, or of living by man. If a man used not to eat meat, by becoming civilized, they start eating meat. But remember, there's what we misunderstand. It's in religious studies. We say, of recent people have tried to mix up what we call westernization with modernization. Westernization is believing in Western culture, the culture of the whites, putting on minis, which is stopping there, putting on transparent clothes, putting on those ones that you know. That is what we're calling westernization. And people have tried to really misunderstand this and to mix it up with what we're calling modernization. People call the dress code, people call the eating habit, people call the Western culture, they call it modernization, which is not really true. But somebody can be modernized in his own capacity, depending on how he or she is created or how the brain works. So when we're talking about stage and development man, we are referring simply to civilization. And this means the modern way of living of a man. Modern way we're looking here. Those days people used to use box office for communication. These days people are using mobile phones. Okay? People used to use other things for communication. People are using computers, people are using internet. That's what we're calling modernization and civilization coming through. So, it refers to the gradual process through which a group of people improve on their pattern of life over a period of time. How a different group of people improves on their modern way of life over time. If we used to, of course Uganda has been relying on agriculture for a long time. If really we used to believe in using the hoe for digging, or a spade for digging, or packers for cutting down trees. These days, people are using tractors. There's no need for going and sweat when you're behind. There's some child who told the mother that mom, you dig when your eyes is looking like a mirror. It's just the sweat flowing behind the mother, and it's calling that sweat a mirror. That my mother has a mirror behind. So in those days, people used to dig and your back sweats and it appears like a mirror. These days people are using machines. Only one person can operate a tractor and digs the whole of over 10 acres, even in a day. So those are the processes that we are calling the transformation of human life from the old way of living to the modern way of living. The gradual process through which a group of people improve on their pattern of life. We are looking at the first stage, which is called the Hard Stone Age. And in this stage, people used to live a very simple life. You even realize that by then, people would look like monkeys. People do not have clothes. And then, people are not stubborn like these days. These days, you see somebody who is not dressed, you feel like a fly, I mean to cry. But people didn't used to mind about anything like that because after all, everybody's like that. So, people used to live a very simple life. The main economic activities was hunting and fruit gathering. This is how they would really survive. They would get the old people, they move with the whole family in the bush. You hunt the animals you kill, you roast, you eat from there. And then you live and settle from there. They didn't have permanent settlement where these days you have a house, you go and sleep very comfortably. You dream after dreaming, you wake up even when you're safe and you find you're in the same place. But for them, anywhere would be very comfortable for them. After eating, getting satisfied, everything is done, you can just sleep there. And that is how they would settle out everything. So you realize that they didn't have permanent settlement. And they would survive only on that hunting and fruit gathering. Fruit gathering here is a situation where you go and get guava in the bush, you get passion fruits and rest, you collect them, you come and eat. No cooking. But only no cooking because by then there wasn't even fire. Even those meats were eaten when it's fresh. Those fruits were just, of course, you know you can't cook guava again and eat. That is another problem in the head. But then they would just collect. Then they go settle down together, and then they eat together. So that is what would happen. Those are what would happen in the first stage. The people had no permanent houses to stay in. I told you about that. They just go in the group, you sit down, you eat, and everything becomes off. There was no clothes like now we are dressed. The issue of where you look at somebody's thing and then you celebrate, I wasn't there, you're causing problem to yourself. You would just persist with that, and they didn't have that brain to think much about that. And in this stage, people would appear and would look like monkeys. I mean, like baboons, I would say, or gorillas. People would look like such, and people resembles. And human being and gorilla, they come from the same source. They belong to the same class. That's if you go very far in college, you understand that they belong to the same group of life. But then, those are what would happen in the first stage. We call them Early Stone Age. Put together. We call them Stone Age because people used to use stones for everything. There wasn't weapons like pangas, like everything, but only stones. You want to hunt the animal, you go and just throw with stones, you hit and get all that you want. We have the second stage we're calling the Middle Stone Age. Of course, from one stage to another, there must be what we call progression, moving a step ahead in life. Not again going behind that. Other people are going behind in the moment. You find somebody, it's just there, doesn't think, doesn't eat, wait for everything, wait for even addition to be made. He's being told go and breathe, and that is going back. But here, we're looking at the growth in different stages. We have second stage, which is called the Middle Stone Age. After many years, people gradually change depending on food they hunted and gathered. Whenever they would realize they have gathered like much fruits, people would sit there. They settle there and then they eat. If you gather like bags where you cannot finish in a day, the main issue as why they would move from one place to another is because you gather a small amount of food, small quantity. You will have to again move and gather from the other place. You eat, you sleep there, and you just move. But in the situation, we're looking at where they would gather in a large amount, and then you find this large amount that they've gathered can be eaten in a week. So they have to stay there for a week until they're eating their thing. Now you realize that when they spend a week, they are becoming now a stable kind of life. After every day you get, you eat, you move, again you get, you eat, you move. But this one, they gather in large amount, then they eat. After eating, they sleep there, they live there for like a week when they're still eating all the things. So it would happen after very many years now, when they were gradually changing. When we're saying gradually changing, we're meaning slowly changing from one step to another, moving in a step slowly. They began keeping animals, growing off some crops, though of very small quantities. Now, remember those days they would live in a bush. And when they look into geography carefully, but this is history, but when you look into geography carefully, we shall realize that there are very many foods that we eat, very many food crops that we eat these days that came from the bush. For example, even cassava. Cassava that we eat was first discovered in major forests like Gwindi Penetrable Forest. It was discovered there. Then some people who made that tour realized, there's this plant and they thought they were just uprooting from down, and the tuber came from down, and they realized that tuber could be eaten. And then it had to come overland, to an open space. So there are those fruits which were gathered by, and which were collected where I got from the bush. So when they realized that all the things were in the bush, they now started having a mind of preparing the best place that they would grow in form of a garden. And that's what I'm saying, they're having some kind of temporary kind of agriculture and planting of crops, but a very small quantity. Because they're still changing from the issue of gathering fruits to the issue of planting some. Okay? So, when they began keeping animals, growing some crops, though in a very small quantity, they started putting some temporary structures like sheds in form of a house. When they realized that there's a need for us to stay here for a week, I think instead of sleeping under a tree, you put some shade to make you at least stay there for some time. Because remember, in the process of their movement, production was there. Now, there's a way a small baby would really be affected by sleeping on coldness every day, and yet you're kind of trying to have a simple life. Though you would stay for a week, for a month, for a year, but there will be need for you to have some kind of temporary structure, at least for you to stay comfortably. And so they started putting some temporary structures like sheds in form of a house to help them boost on all that. Are we together? Now, because of this, they began living in groups, which later led to the development of leaders in form of government people to keep law and order. Now, because the population was also growing, remember, it starts from 2. That is how it even started long ago, even in Genesis. They started with 2 people, Adam and Eve, but later they gave birth. So it started from few people, and the population started growing. As they are moving, as they're in the bush, the population started growing. The productions are coming over. People are becoming many. Now, when people are becoming many, it means there has to be somebody to head, to lead the group. Okay? If you are 2, after a year you produce twins. Again, the other one is producing twins. You're already growing. You find you're 10, you're 20, you're 100, you're 1,000, and the rest. There you need to have somebody to be ruling you, leading you. When there's in this way, we have what we call ruling and leading. Leading is like being part of the team and you move with them. But ruling, you impose your rule on them. You tell them, all of you sleep down. all of you lie down and give you canes. Those are the characteristics of the ruler. But for a leader, we say, let's all go down. All of you should go to the garden, that's a ruler. But let's go and dig. That is a leader. So, there will be need for a leader or a ruler in this situation to help move with the rest. That's what we're calling, those are things that were involved in the second stage, or the Milestone Age. They're saying because of this, there had to be the need of the leader in form of the government. Of course, where there's a leader, that's where the government governance. Okay? So there had to be a leader to be taking charge of the rest of the people, and then to make the welfare of the other people move well. Are we together? That was the second stage. We call it Milestone Age. And in this stage, people progressed from being naked. People are now starting covering themselves with some leaves. You get the leaves, you cover the most important part. The most important, in front and behind, you only cover those parts. So that you shouldn't look, the all of the body shouldn't appear. And that would happen. That happened in the Milestone Age. Are we together? So from the hardest stone age, there wasn't any dressing. The second stone age, people started covering themselves with the leaves and some other things that would help them on the cover, the private parts. And those things would happen in the second stage. Now, we are going to the third stage, which is called the Iron Age. Okay? In this third stage, we shall realize that they discovered what we call fire. And the first people who discovered fire, by the history tells us that they rubbed two rocks over one another. After rubbing this rock and this one, it produced some heat. And that heat eventually came into light. And after lighting, poured on the grass and it lit. So, in this stage, they already discovered some things. They realized from wearing glasses, from being naked, I think we have to progress. That's what they thought. We have to progress from covering our private parts only and to covering some other important, in fact, all of the body. The third stage, which is the Iron Age. They started thinking like human beings. They started disassociating themselves from the monkeys, from the baboons, from the gorillas, now coming to a real human being who has brain, who can think, who can understand that I think it's going to rain today, I have to sleep under the house. Let's construct something a bit better than this one which is leaking. Let's construct something better than a shed, at least for us to stay under. They came to this, in this stage, this is where they realized that somebody can fall sick and I think we need to get some mixture of some things and we give the other person and get cured. This is a stage where they realize that I think we have to have some strength in agriculture, in planting of crops, so that we can obtain foods, other than moving from one place to another. It's a stage where they realize that there's no need for us to be moving each and every time, every now and then, looking for what to eat, looking for fruits and the rest. In fact, they left fruit gathering in this stage, and they started concentrating on what we call subsistent kind of agriculture. Agriculture only for food. You only produce to feed, not to sell and the rest. This is what happened in the third stage. But we shall realize that after we already realize that we are producing into large quantity now, there's need for what we call trading system. You go and exchange with the rest. Just go and you produce millet, you go and exchange with other things. That's what we call battery. But then, this is what happened in the third stage, where the man started putting on some clothes, which is reasonable, but not as smart as I am, if I'm really smart, but not putting on the grass like in the other stages. So that is how man started progressing from one stage to another, and that is what happened in fact, the man started developing, started thinking like a real human being, started realizing in the sense that I think we have to be a bit different from the monkeys, from the baboons and gorillas. I think we have to start putting on some clothes, we have to start doing all this and that. Okay? Those are what happened. Since there was food production, people began producing other things also. Okay? Other things other than food only. They started producing. When they realized that agriculture, producing of food is also important, it's giving us food and rest, they realized that there's need to extend our strength to some other things. Okay? And now this is what they did apart from agriculture. They started specializing now. Others now coming into craft. Craft producing of the other clothes, putting on something, producing something that they would use for walking, like steppers, using of banana reeds for making the steppers and other things. Others now started moving into poultry, making of the pot, to keep water, to cook food, to boil water, to do other things, to fetch water. Others started making other tools and weapons like arrows, like spears. They started now making all that thing from the stones, from the rocks and the rest. Started making equipment for fighting. And this is the period where we started developing, and man started developing the feelings of leadership, feelings of quarreling, feelings of being aggressive in order to take the leadership. Remember, in the other stage, telling us that. In the second stage, he's telling us that they began living in groups, which later developed into a form of governance to keep law and order. So, since there was already development of government to keep law and order, now people started fighting, I think I should be the leader. Because there are people to rule, have to be a leader. When you're a leader, whoever produces food will bring for you at least some percent you eat. You don't dig, you're just there to look for the welfare of the people. And people started fighting now to become such persons. And that is where you will find that the production of weapons, the arrows, the spears and the rest came into existence. And that is what happened also at last. Okay? So that is what happened in the third stage. This is where we will find other things will be exchanged now with the food from those who are producing surplus, in excess, who are producing much food. This is where you will realize that at least they will now start exchanging. Now we are going to the last stage, which is called the scientific stage. That is the fourth stage. So we call it the scientific stage. Now, with the scientific stage, in this stage, people became specialists in different areas. For example, mechanics, soldiers, judges, priests, rulers, as the population grew. Scientific situation is what we are right now. We are thinking much different from the people of the past. We have the brain to understand that. I think we have to pass through the road to go to the other place. And that's why we have the tarmacs, we have the other maram roads, we have the other roads that run. We now understand that I think there's need to eat fully boiled meat and than eating what is half roasted. We understand. Well, I was telling you, I'm very certain that if I ask you a question like, explain to me, but as per your level, I will ask you, what are the stages in the development of man? Or what are the stages in civilization? Or what is civilization? I will have to ask you that, when I will ask you that question, I will need you to answer that. Okay? And when I ask you such questions, it's only these ones. These are the 4 stages we have. First, second, third, and fourth. The Middlestone age, the Hardstone age, the Middlestone age. Then we have the High age, and then we have what they call it, the scientific age, or the fourth stage. So you shouldn't forget all that when I ask you to write for me. Okay? But now we shall realize that all these 4 stages had their belief, had their own structures, had the way they are doing their things, had their own what we call in culture, how they will do their things, their way of living, their way of life. If in the first stage people would just gather fruits, then they eat, and that was their culture. Their culture was like living in fetching for food, getting what to eat. Okay, that was their culture. Moving from now and then, here to there, that was their culture. Also, in the second stage, we have also what they call it their culture. Now, we should disassociate them or makes a difference between the first stage, which is the heritage, and then the second stage. All that all that situations are just portraying the culture in them. A little bit. So now, understand very clearly what the culture means. Basically, for the introduction, to make you understand more about history and how all this came about, we shall look at culture into its own perspective. But then, there is a real topic for culture in the middle that we shall be looking at them when we're nearing the end of the term. But then, basically, to make you understand more about history, culture here refers to different stages of life of a particular society or community. Just like I was telling you, each and every stage had their culture, had their what they believed in, had the way they would communicate to each other, had the way they would eat, had the way they would have their governance or the ruling structure. They would put in their leaders, they would dress, they would marry each other if there was marriage, or someone would just be given, be told to go, or they had the way they would do some other things that will identify them. Okay? And that is what we call in culture. The different ways of life, of expression of a particular society or community. Like I was telling you, the Bagandans are known with their traditional dances. That is cultural expression. The Northerners are known for their traditional dances also. Just like all the other Westerns, the Easterners and the rest. All that is just portraying the culture, revealing how they really look like and what they really believe in. Are you together? So that is what we call in culture. It is majorly shown in form of the rural governments, dressing codes, eating code, marriage ceremonies, and the rest. The governance, how they would lead themselves, who would lead them, who would show them the direction, who would give them, what kind of administration do they have. Others will like, of course I told you there was a centralized system of administration and decentralized. Others will lead themselves, and others will be led by others. That is the form of government. Now, dressing code. Do they put on the commerce long, up to up, or they put on the mini skirt, or they would put on leaves, or they would dress on, or just something like a clothes just to cover their private parts and other important areas. So, all that is coming from what we call in culture. All that is exhibited, or is portrayed, or is shown in the culture. The way they express how they would eat. Now, we understand that people long ago would eat from the same sauce. Eat the sauce from the same pot. They bring a sauce, everybody will have to eat from here. 2 plates, this one for the sauce, this one is for the food. You pick, you eat the sauce. You find over 10 people are even scooping from the same sauce. And that was the culture by then. But what we're calling civilization, or modernization, or the transformation from the old system of doing things, of life, the old ways of life to the modern way of life. So people started now realizing, I think, when we share from the same source, others might not be having cleaner hands. Others might be having wounds under their nails. Others might be having different things. Others might have scratched their bodies from any other part. So now, is there a need to share with them from the same source? No. They had to understand that there's a need to divide this. To get your own source. Be it you scratch yourself or another thing with your hands, you eat by yourself. Be it you didn't wash your hands, you eat. Be it you do what you eat alone, other than taking from the same source. And that's what we call civilization. Coming from the old one, realizing the mistakes of the past, and you compare the situation to make the future. That is what history means, and that is what we're looking at when we talk of history together. That was also exhibited in the dressing code as part of the culture. Then marriage ceremonies. In the other cultures, very many people have their different way of doing things. For example, we have people who present gifts in form of goods. Like animals, goats, and animals and other properties for marriage. But other tradition, in other culture, they just present money. Everything is calculated. We want how many cows? We want 20 cows. Each cow is how much? It's 800. Now 800, you multiply by 20 cows, you get the amount. You pull the money, you count and give. You want how many goats? We want 2 goats. One goat is how much? It's 110. Multiply by 2, you pull the money. You want what else? This and that. You just count them in the form of money. And that's also other people's culture. Okay? That one is also expressed in the culture. Other culture, you just give a lady to a man. Just go and stay. When people are happy, you come and appreciate us with anything. Because other people are just interested and they're only interested in the happiness of their children when they are married. So, that one is also expressed in the culture. Plus other things which are also shown in the culture and the way of life for people. In their language, the language they speak also defines the culture. The main food crop they have, the way they produce their crops also talks about their culture. Their trading system, their way of life, their economic status also show their culture. And generally, behaviors of a certain group of people shows what culture means to them and how they portray or show their culture. So all that we're defining for us the culture, but by definition culture refers to the way the different groups of people express their way of living. Okay? It refers to different ways of life of a particular society or a group. Or a society here means where people can meet and have their expression together, share ideas and the rest. Or a community, also the same thing. Or a country, the way they express their life, their way of living, identifies their culture and the rest. We are going to just touch on the importance of culture in real sense. Importance of culture. The moment we have identified our way of dressing, our eating habits, the rest, how is it important to us to know what culture means? How does culture help us in this situation? Okay? Now, culture is a source of information about a specific group of people. It tells us clearly how other people behave, how they do their things. It's telling us what we know, how we should know them. Okay? That is what culture helps us on. It shows different ways of life of a certain community. Okay? It shows the way of life. I may come from, like, let me give for example, I may come from Bugisu, but then I'm enforcing circumcision. Somebody can easily understand that maybe I'm from Bugisu, that may not be true, but somebody can really understand because they know circumcision is the main tradition, cultural rites, rituals performed by the Bugisus. They may know that. Or my behavior, my expression, everything I'm doing may show that I am from here. I may not tell you I'm a Nani, I'm a Luo, I'm a Uganda, or I'm what. But the way I do my things, the way I dress, the way I talk, the way I express myself, the way I appear may show you that this one, I think, comes from that part of the country, comes from that part of Uganda. Okay? So, it shows us different ways of life of a certain community. Like also marriage. I may have a marriage in a different region, but I will follow how our tradition demands, and people will just know that this kind of practice is done by these people from this part of the country. Okay? So it shows the way of life of different people. If a people of this place, maybe they feed on agriculture, but for me in my region, I may not be able to know how they do agriculture. They can tell this one is from where they don't practice agriculture, they don't know how to farm, they don't know how to dig, they don't really know how to fish. And these people who don't really know how to do all the things comes from this part of the country. And this is what culture tells us or helps us so much in. It helps us identify, or it helps in the identification of personalities, knowing of passions, belongingness. Okay? Assuming I die, I'm giving that example just. Assuming I die from here, when I don't have my identification card, when I don't have anything that can reveal my identity. Can take a look at me, understand that this one is from this part of the country, from this group of people. Okay? You can follow how I do my things, and then you understand that this one is from these people. So it reveals the personalities of the person. And all this are telling us the importance of culture in real sense or in our lives. Are we together? Now, it helps in classification of different cultural norms. In the example, dressing codes, marriage ceremonies, twin dancing, and the rest. Are we together? It helps in the classification of cultural norms, like dressing codes and the rest. Other people also adapt other people's culture. That's why I was telling you, people have mixed up modernization with the westernization. It is the Western culture. When we're talking about the Western, we look at the other countries, the other continents, like America, both North and South, we have Europe, we have Asia. Those are what we call Western countries. Okay? Because even when you look at what we call the bearings or the compass direction, you find those states are in the western part, of the others are in the northern part. But we call them Western countries. People are now copying the way they do their things, how they dress, okay, how they dance, how they eat. That's why the traditional African food is disappearing. The food that they would eat and they would even stay for over 100 years without falling sick, they don't even die, they're just there. No malaria, no nothing. And people now have adapted the Western type where you only survive on soft things. Oil is the part of the day. If you've not eaten fried food or anything that passed through the oil, then you've not eaten anything. And those are the things destroying us because they have dangerous chemicals that's packed in our stomachs that works on us and we just realize ourselves dying. If you find somebody dying with the age of 45 or 50 and somebody says old age at 50, at 70, maybe that's why we even live for 120 years and they will die. But now you find somebody is crying to die at the age of 50, 60, that's going to kill me, I'm tired of living now, I'm old, tired of living. If I was God, I would slap you just. So, those are that people are calling the Western culture, people are calling the modernization. It's because of eating all the things, doing some of the things that are for Westerns. And people are already identified. That's why I was saying the culture and people identified, they all the personalities and the rest. They have already identified that these are the food which are eaten by most people of a lot of the Western cultures. Okay? So we have different cultures and very, very important of the culture that we shall discover throughout the learning of the history. Others will also discover through research, because I will be guiding on how to make research on all this. Very, very important that you show, that you see, that you know from other people, from other group of people. Just talk about how other groups of people identify. If suppose you belong to this tribe or this group of people, focus on how those people do their things, and that is their culture. The moment you get to know that they're doing something that they know, they understand by themselves, that is their culture. So, how this makes part of the introduction of the history. And in the next lesson that we're going to have, we shall now come into how human beings, how people started coming into East Africa. Because many of this is history of East Africa. So we shall now go to specifically what happens in East Africa, how people came into East Africa, how the Bantu, the Kushites, the Arabs, the Portuguese and the rest came into the coast of East Africa, starting in the next lesson. I have some questions for discussions for you, or the questions that will guide you through this. The first question is, what is history? What is history? Those are part of the introduction of history. Then that is part A. Then question 1, part B is telling us what are the importance of history, or why do we study history in human life? That is the second question. Then the third question is, what are the branches of history you know? What are the branches of history you know? You can mention all those branches of history that I've given you. Then, the fourth one is identify the different stages of development of man. All these are things I've already given you. The development of stages, different stages of man are the things I've already given you. Then the second last question is define what culture means. And then the last one is how is culture important to human aspect. Those are things we will discuss. And all this makes the introduction, makes you understand what history is. Whatever you not understood about what history means or about the introduction of the history, we shall have the platform to converse and then I explain to you this, and then you get to be familiar with all this, you get to know all this. Thank you for having this lesson. Thank you for attending this lesson. See you next time. We meet again in the next